Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at the world of chatbots, specifically how we measure user satisfaction with them. You've done some fascinating research on this topic, especially when it comes to customer service chatbots. And we got some excerpts from a couple of papers to really dig into here. One from 2024 that reevaluates a tool called the Chatbot Usability Scale, BUS 11 for short, and another one from 2022 that describes the initial design of the BUS and a complementary checklist for designers called the BOT check. So let's say our listener is designing or evaluating a chatbot. What are the really key things to consider to make sure users have a good experience? That's what we're hoping to uncover today.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things to recognize right off the bat
Yeah.
is that chatbots are a totally different beast compared to the interfaces we're used to.
Oh, absolutely. It's true. They're not just static screens. We're actually having a conversation with them, which
Yeah.
is a pretty huge shift.
Exactly. And that means we need specialized tools to evaluate how satisfied users are with these conversational interactions. Traditional tools like the System Usability Scale, SUS, or the UM/UX Lite. Those were really designed for older click-and-point interfaces. They don't quite capture the nuances of what makes a chatbot experience good or bad.
So that's where this BUS comes in, the Chatbot Usability Scale. It's kind of like a specialized tool just for measuring how happy users are with their chatbot interactions.
Precisely. Think of it as a thermometer for chatbot usability. And this brings us to the BUS 11, which was a refinement of an earlier BUS 15, to really hone in on those short-term interactions that are very typical of like customer service or CRM chatbots.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how did researchers actually develop this BUS? Like what went into creating this specialized scale?
Well, they took a very systematic approach. First, they did a really extensive review of existing literature on chatbot quality. They identified something like 38 potential attributes that might influence user satisfaction. Then, to help narrow it down, they surveyed both chatbot designers and everyday users.
Interesting. So getting input from both sides, the creators and the users, seems like a really smart move. What emerged as the really crucial factors then?
Well, based on that feedback, they were able to pinpoint 17 key attributes. And then to make sure that the wording in the questionnaire was crystal clear and understandable, they conducted focus groups.
Ah, focus groups. A classic. You can't beat real-world feedback. Now, I know we're going to dive deep into the specifics of those 17 attributes a little later, but first there was this really fascinating point in the 2024 paper about kind of the who versus the what that I'd love to unpack.
Ah, yes, that's a crucial distinction. It really highlights the difference between what we call psychometrics and designometrics. So psychometrics is focused on ranking people based on their responses, whereas designometrics is all about ranking the designs themselves. In this case, ranking different chatbots.
Okay, I think I'm following. Can you give me an example to illustrate that difference?
Certainly. Imagine we're comparing two different car designs. Dasometrics would help us determine which car is objectively better, based on criteria like fuel efficiency, safety features, handling. It's about evaluating the design itself, not the driver's personal preferences.
Ah, okay, that makes it much clearer. And how does that distinction apply to the BUS then?
Well, while the BUS was initially validated for ranking people, understanding individual preferences, the 2024 paper looked at it from a designometric perspective. They used a much larger sample of chatbots to really demonstrate that the BUS 11 can be reliably used to actually compare different chatbot designs and determine which designs are most likely to satisfy users.
So for our listener who's out there designing a chatbot, this means they can actually use the BUS 11 to evaluate their design choices and make data-driven decisions to enhance user satisfaction.
Precisely.
Are you ready to dive into those 5 key factors that the BUS 11 measures?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. What are the core ingredients that make a chatbot truly usable and satisfying from the user's perspective?
Well, the first factor is accessibility. This is all about how easily users can find the chatbot and start using it. If your chatbot is like buried deep within your website or app, users might never even find it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Accessibility is key. I definitely encountered some chatbots that were like practically invisible, tucked away in some obscure corner of a website.
Exactly. You want to make sure your chatbot is like prominently displayed and easily accessible. Think about integrating it seamlessly into your user interface, perhaps as a floating button that's always visible.
Like a friendly guide that's always there to assist.
Yeah.
Without being too intrusive.
Right. Next, we have functionality. This boils down to whether the chatbot actually delivers on its promises. Can it accurately understand what the user is asking?
Yeah.
And provide the right information or perform the desired actions?
Functionality. It has to actually work and be helpful. Otherwise, it's just a frustrating digital dead end.
Precisely. Imagine a customer service chatbot that can't answer basic questions about your products or services. That's a surefire way to drive users away.
Yeah, for sure. And that brings us to our third factor conversation. This delves into the quality of the interaction itself. How natural and understandable is the conversation? Does the chatbot provide helpful and informative responses?
Right, here's where the art of conversation comes into play. Even though it's a conversation with a machine, we're striving for clarity, relevance, and a sense of natural flow. You don't want users to feel like they're talking to a clunky robot that's just spitting out canned responses.
Yeah, it's got to have that human touch. Even in a digital interaction, I find myself getting really impatient with chatbots that sound overly robotic or just can't seem to follow the thread of the conversation.
Absolutely. And that leads us to our fourth factor, privacy. With chatbots handling increasingly sensitive information, users need assurance that their data is being protected.
This is a huge concern for many users. We're sharing more and more personal information online these days, so that sense of trust and security is paramount.
Absolutely. Users need to feel confident that their data is being handled responsibly and ethically. Transparency is crucial here. Let users know what information the chatbot is collecting and how it's being used.
Transparency builds trust, for sure. And last but not least, we have responsiveness. This one seems pretty straightforward. How quickly does the chatbot respond to the user's requests?
Yeah, but speed is paramount in our fast-paced digital world. Nobody wants to be left hanging waiting for a response.
It's like being put on hold forever. So frustrating. A slow chatbot can really erode user satisfaction and patience.
You got it. So those are the 5 key factors that make up the BUS 11. Accessibility, functionality, conversation, privacy, and responsiveness. They all work together to shape a positive chatbot experience.
Okay, so we've got those 5 key ingredients. Now, I'm curious, were there any surprises when the researchers were developing the BUS? Did they encounter anything unexpected along the way?
One intriguing finding was that personality and enjoyment weren't considered essential factors for CRM chatbot satisfaction.
That's interesting. Why wouldn't a personable or enjoyable chatbot be a plus? Even in a customer service context, you'd think those qualities would enhance the user experience.
It really comes back to the nature of those short-term interactions
Yeah.
that are so typical of customer service. Users primarily want to get things done quickly and efficiently. They're not necessarily looking to build a rapport with the chatbot or be entertained by it.
Right. It's about getting your issue resolved and getting out. Efficiency trumps personality in those situations.
Precisely. It's like the difference between a quick visit to the bank and a leisurely chat with a friend. You have different expectations for those interactions.
That's a great analogy. Helps to kind of reframe those expectations. Now, you mentioned earlier that ease of use was initially considered as a potential factor, but was ultimately deemed too vague. What happened there?
Well, the research really suggests that user satisfaction doesn't stem from ease of use in isolation. Instead, it arises from the interplay of those 5 key factors we just discussed.
So it's like those 5 factors are the individual pieces of a puzzle. And when you put them together correctly, you create that holistic sense of ease of use.
Exactly. It's about the synergy between those elements. And speaking of putting things together correctly, this focus on functionality reminds me of the BOT check, which is a tool designed to help designers get it right from the start.
Oh, you've piqued my curiosity. Tell me more about this BOT check. How does it act as a secret weapon for chatbot designers?
Well, remember those 17 key quality attributes we touched on earlier? The ones that emerged as being essential for user satisfaction.
Yes. Those are the bedrock of a good chatbot experience.
Well, the BOT check provides designers with a practical checklist to ensure their chatbot actually incorporates those 17 attributes. Think of it as a roadmap to creating a user-friendly chatbot.
So it helps designers kind of bake those quality attributes into the design from the get-go. So you reduce the likelihood of usability issues down the line.
Precisely. And what's really clever is how the BOT check complements the BUS. It's a proactive approach to design, encouraging designers to address potential usability issues before they even begin user testing.
It's like having a quality assurance check built right into the design process itself. Catch those issues early and you save time and resources later on.
Exactly. It's all about creating a user-centered design process.
So we've explored the WHY of needing specialized tools for evaluating chatbot usability. We've delved into the what with the BUS, and now we've got the HOW with the BOT check. Our listener now has a really robust toolkit for either creating a chatbot that delights users or critically evaluating existing ones.
That's right. And our whole discussion so far is really focused on these CRM chatbots. Those are the ones that are designed for those like quick transactional interactions. But what happens when we start thinking about chatbots that are intended for longer term engagement?
Yeah, that's a great question. Things could get really interesting when we're talking about chatbots as like virtual companions or personal assistants. You know, those bots you're interacting with on a regular basis, maybe even forming some kind of bond with. How might those criteria for satisfaction need to change, do you think?
Yeah, the rules of the game totally change. For example, those factors we kind of dismissed earlier on, personality and enjoyment, those might actually become pretty central to a positive user experience. I mean, think about it. If you're interacting with a chatbot every day, you probably want that interaction to be at least somewhat enjoyable, not just purely functional.
Yeah, totally makes sense. It's like the difference between a really helpful but like impersonal customer service rep
Yeah,
versus a friend who knows your preferences and can like make you laugh.
exactly. And, there might be other factors that emerge as crucial in these long-term scenarios, like the chatbot's ability to learn and adapt to your individual preferences, or its capacity for empathy and emotional intelligence.
Yeah, those are some fascinating design challenges to think about. How do you create a chatbot that really feels like a genuine companion, one that understands your needs and can provide you with meaningful support?
It's pretty uncharted territory in a lot of ways. And as these AI-powered companions become more integrated into our lives, the way we measure and evaluate user satisfaction is going to have to keep pace. We're going to need new tools and frameworks to really capture those nuanced aspects of long-term engagement.
It's a really dynamic field, that's for sure. And I imagine as AI technology continues to advance, those lines between human and machine interaction are just going to continue to blur.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be working in this space.
So, to our listener, if you're eager to dive even deeper into this world of chatbots, I highly recommend checking out those research papers that you shared with us. They're packed with insights and details we couldn't even begin to cover in this deep dive.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to experiment. Interact with different types of chatbots out there. Pay attention to what you find satisfying and
Mm.
frustrating, and use those observations to inform your own design thinking.
That's great advice. And as we wrap up our deep dive into chatbot usability today, it's important to remember that it's ultimately about understanding user needs and creating experiences that are not only functional, but also enjoyable and engaging. Thanks so much for joining us on this exploration. Until next time, keep learning and keep diving.